Hey everyone, Rob Maximum RD here. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a different angle here today. This is basically an open tag. I would really appreciate response. Comments are fine, but what would be really cool would be as many video responses as possible. I am calling out all Amiga fans. That's Amiga fans. Now, some of you instantly know what I'm talking about. Some of you may not. Let me just say that first and foremost, I'm obviously a big fan of all classic and retro gaming and computing. But my best memories, happiest memories, were all related to the Commodore Amiga computers. If you are into the Commodore Amigas yourself, then you know that doesn't require a lot of explanation. But a lot of you older people, you either grew up, well, some of you were lucky enough to dabble and be exposed to both sides of classic computing in many forms. But for the most part, I find it seems that people either grew up in one or two different areas. You either grew up with Commodore and their line of computers, or you were more into Atari and their line of computers. And of course, you know, there was all the other systems from Texas Instruments to excuse me, Tandy and the Coco line. I guess for people overseas, there was the Sinclair and Spectrum computers, etc., etc. But for the most part, I think the two biggest and well-known competitors were probably Commodore and Atari. It's funny looking back on it now. You know, in some ways, I mean, there are similarities. Obviously, I think all different types of computers prior to what we know today as Windows machines and OS X machines, PCs and Macs. All those computers before there was a unified standard, either Windows or Mac, right? That's what it's all about nowadays. But back then, before there was just Windows and Mac standards, there was all kinds of people vying for your dollar in the home computing market. Atari and Commodore were the two big competitors, and I was not into Atari at all back then. I went basically from the Commodore PET computers in school to the Commodore VIC-20, then of course the Commodore 64. I mean, I don't need to go on about that. And then, I was exposed to the Commodore Amiga. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and we went over to his friend's house. And I didn't know anything about the Commodore Amiga at this time. And I went to my this fellow's house, and he was in his room. He had a monitor set up and also a television. And I noticed that he had the same image, or he had demonstrated to me how he could switch the image between his television and his monitor. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And I believe he was playing The Running Man, a game, The Running Man. Not a great game by any stretch of the imagination. But what really struck me was the quality of the animation, what I believe was parallax scrolling background, like depth of field scrolling at a different time, the foreground and the background, and of course the music, the sound was very impressive. I had not seen anything compared to that. Prior to that, I had only seen the Commodore 64 and earlier systems, and I was just literally blown away. I was just amazed. And this fellow had boxes and boxes of discs, and I later found out that it was a Commodore Amiga 1000 computer. And he just showed me some things, the multitasking capabilities, and the interface, which later I would learn was called Workbench, the Amiga operating system, and I had just fallen in love with it. I just thought it was amazing, the capabilities and what could be done in a relatively small amount of memory. I was just amazed how you could multitask and play these games with fantastic colors and stereo sound. The only thing I had seen on the PC at that time, of course, were games mostly with bleeps and bloops for sound and very primitive graphics. So yeah, I was very blown away. He showed me, of course, I believe it was Deluxe Paint and some paint programs, and it just amazed me what could be done. So yeah, of course, I had no money back then, no access to anything back then, but I immediately started buying Amiga magazines, reading everything about it, just amazed, taking it all in. I couldn't, I was really happy with that platform. And as time went on, eventually I was able to get a hold of an Amiga 500. Never had the 1000, got the Amiga 500. Then eventually years later a 1200, and then added an old 30 accelerator card with a couple megabytes of RAM, and even had a hard drive, a small hard drive, and booted it up. And I actually had stuck with that for many, many years, up until the eventual switch to the PC. But great fond memories of the Amiga platform. And so anyways, this tag is calling out to all of you Amiga fans. I'm looking for you to share your experience, your memories. I guess if we want to put it in question form, I would say, number one, what was your first exposure to the Commodore Amiga? Secondly, what attracted you to the Commodore Amiga platform? And three, what was your favorite use for the Amiga platform? So, number one, what was your first exposure? Number two, what attracted you to it? And number three, what was your favorite use for it? So calling out all Amiga fans, this is an open tag. Share your comments, stories, thoughts. Video response would be excellent. I would really appreciate that. And that's it, okay? Just a quick idea I had popped into my head. I'm sure there are a lot of you who enjoyed the Amiga as much as I did, so let it be known.